All right, y'all, we're gonna check out this boudoir photographer. Gonna see if their local search and their city search, if they got BSS for either of those searches. We only got one search for them today. So we're back here in the GBC universe. We're taking declining boudoir photographers to the #1 boudoir photographer in their city, utilizing our North Star as always is FSIC, full spectrum intent capture. And this is our North Star because it explains why all boudoir photographers either rise or fall. So we got our intent spectrum here in white, and we got way on the left, we got the highest intent people, the Google searchers, the social media searchers. These people that are looking for a boudoir photo shoot in their city right now. Highest intent people, closest to the money, highest conversion rate. And over on the right, we got the lowest intent people. These are, reaching by interruption ads, Facebook, Instagram. People ain't looking for a boudoir right now. Most of them don't even know what the heck boudoir is. So that's our sister brand, FB Ad Doctor. Talk about BLCS over there, different profiles. And these are we currently over there only work with boudoir photographers running more than 10 grand a month in boudoir Facebook ads. But here we talk about BSS. We're going to dive into it right now. So BSS is boudoir search sameness. That's when a boudoir photographer has either 0 or 1 slots on page 1 of Google. And when a boudoir photographer's got 0 slots, well, they're on page 2 or deeper, and that's extra bad. And that's because we know that approximately 80% of Google searches never even hit page 2. They're page 1 and done. And so that's what we care about. We care about the approximately 80% of Google searchers because they're the bulk of the market. We don't care about the remaining 20%. Let's focus on the approximately 80%. So we're on page 2 or deeper, dude. We're invisible to all of them. 1 slot on page 1 Google, also not good enough. Still basically invisible, simply because we look the same as everyone else. If we got 1 slot on page 1 of Google, well, there's 10 slots. And as a result, it's probably going to be 9 other boudoir photographers, 1 link for each. And so, a buyer, what they're going to be doing is just, clicking, going down, clicking everyone's link and, price shopping everyone and basically contacting everyone, jamming down the price, jamming down the what a seller can get. And it's become super, super cutthroat. So we never want to be at 0 or 1. We call that boudoir search sameness. And 0 or 1 slots on page 1 Google is not normal. Extremely common, extremely accepted, but not normal. It's actually a symptom of 2 deeper root causes. The first deeper root cause, market saturation. Someone get a new iPhone, then they throw up on Google Maps that they do boudoir photography, and they got a website that's starting to rank page 1 on, or competing to rank page 1 on Google. Or someone gets a new camera, they start posting in the mom groups that they shoot boudoir now. So this market saturation, basically everyone knows about this. A big kind of tsunami happened during COVID. People couldn't work, lost their jobs, they still need to earn money. Everyone's got a smartphone, everyone's got an awesome camera. So a lot of boudoir photographers entered the market. Makes it harder for every other boudoir photographer in that market, because it's the same sellers or more sellers for the same number of buyers. So it gets harder and harder for each seller. Now, this new one that very few people know about is the false belief of page 1 equality. That is that's the second deeper root cause for why people only have 0 or 1 slots on page 1 of Google. And that's because it's simply kind of automatically accepting or agreeing with, or maybe not even thinking about, thinking it's true or false, but kind of an auto assumption that each boudoir photographer gets either 0 or 1 slots on page 1 of Google. And if you're on page 1, you had your 1 slot with your website, and market gets a little bit more saturated, you get kicked down to page 2. Well, that's simply how it is. You win some, you lose some, and you kind of got to simply wait for someone to delete their boudoir photography website to actually increase, or actually hopefully move back up onto page 1. So that's a false belief, and I know that because I went from 0 out of 10 slots page 1 on Google to 9 out of 10 slots page 1 on Google in only 10 days. So I know Google will actually give us as many page 1 slots as we want to put in the effort to acquire. Best part is, requires no Google ads, which at max will give you 1 PPC slot somewhere on the page, even if there's other available inventory open. And their momentum dies when you stop spending. So there, and you got to test and figure out all these things to get them to work, constant checking. Way too much maintenance for, not enough outcome there. Next, we know that boudoir photographer with BSS is a disappearing boudoir photographer, because if they're on page 2 or deeper, or if they're on page 1 but one slot essentially invincible, then they disappeared from essentially like the 80% of searchers, which means the boudoir photography business itself is on the path to disappearing as well. And we don't want that to happen. So we got our micro universe here. Disappearing boudoir photographer with boudoir search sameness. It's caused by market saturation and the false belief of page 1 equality. Thankfully, though, we now have a solution because we know that BSS is treated with social search saturation, aka executed methodology. And we know that because we invented it, we've used it. We've gone from, again, 0 out of 10 slots on page 1 Google search to 9 out of 10 slots page 1 Google search in only 10 days. And it works exactly as it says, social search saturation. We're going to saturate the highest intent keywords on social search. And as a result of that, well, when we do that, it's kind of like small streams and rivers on the backside of the Andes Mountains down in South America. When we successfully have those eventually flow down into the large Amazon River. They all merge. And likewise in our scenario, all our social search saturation eventually flows down and merges onto Google page 1 Google search, those 10 organic slots. And Google will give us as many as we put in the effort to acquire. And also SQ methodology is the only thing I've seen that actually, for boudoir photographers, that is able to successfully fight back against market saturation, so maintain the business and actually still grow in spite of market saturation. So still get bigger and happen relatively quickly, get results shown up relatively quickly. The only other thing I've seen that can fight back against market saturation and still allow the business to grow in spite of market saturation is brand. Having a well-known, massive brand. Dude, that takes 5 to 10 years. We ain't got that time. SQ methodology works relatively way faster than that. And AI is taking people's jobs, taking people's opportunities. We ain't got 5 to 10 years to build a brand. With SQ methodology, if let's say there's a million boudoir photographers in Knoxville, Tennessee, and we're one of them, and everyone's got their own boudoir photography website, competing to rank page 1 Google search, then what's going to happen is we need to try a new strategy to actually outcompete everyone else. So take SQ methodology, we crank it up to the max, and let's say we take the first 300 slots on social search for all the highest intent boudoir buyer keywords, and we actually, that saturation actually flows onto Google page 1, and we actually get the first 300 slots Google to ourselves. What actually happens is it's 10 organic Google slots per page, and as a result, we got the first 30 pages all to ourselves, and the final one is page 31. That's essentially our competitors first start showing up for organic search. So boudoir buyers basically never find them. So whose business is growing when we got ultra market saturation, a million boudoir photographers? But where the first 300 slots anywhere a boudoir buyer looks. Obviously, our business is still growing. Everyone else's business is disappearing, dying off. It's because SQ methodology is the only thing that enables that without having a brand. And it actually speeds up the process of acquiring a brand. My estimation is probably 8x faster. It's because we're seen on so many more surfaces so much more frequently. Next, once we treat with SQ methodology, we have page 1 visibility. And an initial benefit of this, and a second benefit utilizing SQ methodology, is every new slot we take, page 1 of Google, we're actually kicking competing boudoir photographers off page 1, effectively making them invisible. So that's a second benefit. That's another initial benefit of utilizing SQ methodology, is we're getting more kicking more pieces off page 1. We already know approximately 80% of Google searches never even hit page 2, so we're making our competitors invisible to approximately 80% of the searchers out there. Awesome. And page 1 visibility activates boudoir search visibility for us. This is where we want to hit our recommended 3 out of 10 page 1 slots on Google, because that's the GBC recommended minimum. And that's because if we got 3 slots, basically everyone else will have 1 slot, we'll look way better than them. Way higher chance buyers, click on us and don't even click on our competitors because they're like, wow, why does Google recommend this person 3 times? That's the 3rd person I've seen them now on this page. They may not even click on any of our competitors. And in the very rare case, another boudoir photographer competitor has has 2 slots, then we're still dominating them as well. We got it because we got 3. So that's why we got the GBC recommended minimum of 3. And a boudoir photographer with BSV, boudoir search visibility, is a visible boudoir photographer, a VBP. So this is our micro universe. We got a disappearing boudoir photographer with boudoir search sameness caused by the dual horns of market saturation and page 1 equality. And we now have a solution, SQ'd methodology. We achieve page 1 visibility. We become a visible boudoir photographer with boudoir search visibility. Next, my results. So my results, I want to rank for the keyword BLCS boudoir. Okay, I'm going to utilize my SQ'd methodology to achieve that. And after 10 days, these are my results. So page 1, this is Google organic page 1, or the organic slots here for organic search. Slot 1, me. Slot 2, me. Slot 3, me. Slot 4, me. Slot 5, me. Slot 6, me. Slot 7, me. Slot 8, me. And slot 10, me. So in 10 days, I went from 0 out of 10 slots, page 1 of Google, to 9 out of 10 slots, page 1 of Google, all by purely using SQ'd methodology. All right, main event here. You can see if this boudoir photography business has BSS for their local and city search, but it looks like they got one search here. So we're combining the local and city. We're also going to see if they hit the GBC recommended minimum of 3 out of 10 slots on page 1 of Google search. All right, so DeLand, Florida. All right, so, all right, we're here. All right, we got one slot. And yeah, one slot. Two slots, okay. That boudoir's in kind of the body text, smaller. But all right, we'll give you 2 slots here. All right, so we got 2 out of 10 slots, so good. So we do not have BSS, boudoir search sameness. We got 2 out of 10 slots, but we did not hit the recommended GBC recommended minimum 3 out of 10 slots in our search. So if you're a boudoir photographer and you've got BSS, boudoir search sameness for your own business, you're seeing the market's getting more and more saturated over time. And you feel like you're a disappearing boudoir photographer, or gonna become disappearing, because we'll talk about it in like 10 seconds. And you also see that the page 1 equality is a false belief. Like everyone kind of automatically accepted because there was no like word to describe it, to say, hey, I believe this is true or not true. But now we got a word to describe it. And you're seeing the way AI is creeping in, more and more people being laid off, which, what was the last time that happened? COVID, what happened? Massive influx of boudoir photographers, massive influx, massive supply, all fighting for the same eyeball, approximately the same number of buyers. So it's getting harder and harder for each boudoir photographer that enters the market. And you're saying, okay, it looks like I do need the S-cubed methodology to kind of preempt or prepare myself for AI pushing more boudoir photographers into the market, which means there's going to be more competition for page 1 on Google search. But if I can preempt that, get there already, and it's probably already happening right now as we speak, then we can be prepared to not become a disappearing boudoir photographer. We can achieve page 1 visibility, become a visible boudoir photographer, even though more are probably going to be joining, and achieve boudoir search visibility, and get the extra bonuses on the back end where kind of the more these thematic keyword columns are attached to our brand throughout social, things like that, social search. And the higher chance we show up in, AI overview search here at the top of Google searches. And the higher chance we show up among AI search in general. You know, ChatGPT search, Microsoft Copilot search, Google Gemini search, Claude search, Perplexity search, whoever. When we have these like thematic keyword pillars entwined with us across all our social channels, ranking on Google, this is where the AIs pull from. So we're increasing the probability to show up in all these searches as a back-end benefit. And we're also noticing that if someone else starts using S-cubed methodology for their boudoir photography business before us in our city, all those front-end benefits, page one Google, kicking competitors off could happen to us. And those back-end benefits, them showing up in AI search instead of us. And then, well, you wouldn't be able to work with me because I'm only working with one person per city. So you'd have to figure out S-cubed methodology on your own and then implement it all on your own. And you'd have to actually meet the work output of the other boudoir photographer using it in conjunction with me and exceed us to catch up and overtake us before we overtake page one on Google, kind of push it as far as we want to. And so you've decided, all right, it's better to simply be a first mover because you know you need this on your way to becoming the #1 boudoir photographer in your city. So if that's you, shoot me a DM when I open up for new patient intake. Right now the hospital's closed. My DMs are closed. Cannot get in even if you wanted to. But shoot me a DM for when I do open up the doors, and we'll see if you qualify. We gotta have some questions. Gotta make sure I'm not working with anyone else in your city. And yeah, we'll see if you qualify.